Hi, I'm JD Gunnell with USU Extension. I'm one of the gardening experts. And we're here to talk about gardening today, just gardening 101, just some of the basic things behind growing your own produce. A lot of us have found that we have a little bit more time on our hands with current situations, and the gardening industry, we're here at a greenhouse in Cache Valley, it's booming. People are really gaining interest in growing their own crops, whether it's for increased nutrition or just a fun hobby to do with the kids. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the basic steps in gardening so you can be successful. The first thing to keep in mind is that your garden's going to need sun. Between 6 and 8 hours of full sunlight is best for most vegetables. Some crops like the spinach and the leafy vegetables, lettuce, they can handle a little bit of filtered shade, but most crops that produce fruit like tomatoes, for example, need full sun. The other thing to consider is the timing of when you can do things. We're mid to late March, and a lot of people are getting excited about planting, but this is the time you can do cool season crops. Crops such as lettuce, radishes, onions, peas. These are crops that we consider cool season because they can handle the cooler temperatures. They can even withstand a little bit of frost. So this is the time you can plant those things, direct seed them into your landscape or your garden plot. If you're going to be growing some crops such as melons, tomatoes, peppers, these are what we consider warm season crops. Temperatures need to be within the 70 to 80 degree range for these to grow well. If you put them out now, in the nursery industry, they call it plant early, plant often, because they'll freeze. So be a little bit patient. If you're curious about your frost-free days in your area, you can log on to climate.usu.edu and look at your frost-free dates in your area. Generally speaking, we tell people between May 10th and October 5th are their growing season. That's 5-10 and 10-5. It's easy to remember, but that date will shift depending on where you live. So if you decide to plant seeds in the garden, one of the greatest things that you have available to you is the actual packet of seeds. On the back, it will tell you spacing, how far apart the seeds need to be planted, but also how deep. A general rule is to plant seeds about 3 times the depth as they are wide. So peas, for example, you're going to plant about 1/2 inch deep because they're bigger seeds. Carrots or radishes, on the other hand, are very small seeds. So sometimes if you just sprinkle the seeds on top of the surface of the soil and then cover them up with a light skiff of a potting soil, that's really good because they're not burying them too deep. Another tip is if you're buying transplants, make sure that they haven't been in the container too long. We have what we call the 50-50 rule. 50% soil to 50% root mass is what you should see. If the entire thing is all root, put it back and get a younger transplant. You'll be a lot more successful. So when it comes to fertilizing your vegetables, keep in mind that the package doesn't have to say vegetable or tomato food. All you're concerned with is 3 numbers. The 3 numbers on the fertilizer bag represent nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And if you're growing in a raised bed or a garden soil, most of the time you'll need a well-balanced fertilizer, one that has all 3 numbers. If you're growing in the ground, you can do a soil test through USU at the analytical lab, and they will tell you exactly what's in your soil and what fertilizers you need. Most topsoils in Utah have plenty of phosphorus and potassium. You only need to add the nitrogen or the first number. Another consideration with fertilizer are these numbers or percentages. So when it says 12, 12, 12, for example, that's 12% nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And most vegetables use a fair amount of fertilizer, but not as much as most people think. Some crops like peas and beans are legumes. They fix their own nitrogen, so you have to fertilize them very rarely. Other things like onions and corn, and even lettuce, are high nitrogen users. So make sure you do your homework and find out how much fertilizer each of these crops need. USU Extension has over 75 different individual fact sheets of each crop that you could grow with information on irrigation needs, fertilizer needs, row spacing, plant depth, all the information you would need about that specific crop. So check out these fact sheets at extension.usu.edu or Garden.usu.edu.